Today I want to talk to you guys about a being called Sango. Now, a lot of people in Africa, Black Africa, especially in the West African axis and more specifically in Nigeria, they have a negative thinking about the being called Sango, and especially among Christians and Muslims, and then they just say, oh, Sango, they look at it as something fetish. I need to explain something to you. Sango was not a spirit being. Sango was actually a real human being. He was a king. He was an Alaafin of Oyo. And then after he died, as was typical with those people, they began to do ancestral worship. So he became an Orisha. But he was a real being. Now, there are things that we can learn about Sango, and not just Sango, a lot of other things in our culture, especially Yoruba culture, which are their religion, their culture, it's just circumnavigates something called Ifa. Now, when you hear that, a lot of people want to say, oh, Ifa, it's something devilish. Listen, too often we have allowed colonialism mess with our minds. We've allowed colonialism mess with our minds. I'll give you a very good example. Right now, I'm taking my daughter to go see a movie. Now, the title of that movie is called Thor, Love and Thunder. And it was that movie that motivated me to do this video I'm doing. I just returned from Cuba. Now, this Thor character is actually a god, small god, a Germanic Nordic god, meaning that he originated from the area currently called Germany all the way to the Nordic areas, which is the Scandinavias, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, those kinds of places. Now, what is Thor? Thor is a god that had a hammer, and then he uses that hammer to control lightning and thunder. Now, think about that. What is Sango? Sango was an Alaafin of Oyo, a real person who had an axe. Now, Thor has a hammer axe. Sango has an axe. And what does Sango do with his axe? Sango used to use his axe to control thunder and lightning. In fact, he destroyed his own palace, his own Afi, because he brought down too much lightning and he destroyed his own palace. So now look at the parallel. Can that be a coincidence? Yet, we are going to watch a movie about Thor. Millions of Christians all around the world are going to watch a movie about Thor. The first Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok, it was one of the highest grossing movies ever. A lot of people went and saw it. In Nigeria, we've got Christians who are buying clothes for their children. I watched the premiere of this current one, Love and Thunder. You had Christians, you had, top Christians, in the Anglican church, people going to go and watch it. But this Thor is more, in fact, Sango is not an evil being, but this Thor is a small god. That means that he is against God. And then yet we are participating, we go to watch a movie about him. Now think about it. Go back to this Sango. A lot of you have heard about the slave called Django, of which they made a movie of him, Django. Do you know that Django is actually Sango? That name is, they gave him that name Sango because in the Americas, when the slaves were taken from Nigeria, taken to the Americas, they lost some of the pronunciation. So they call Sango Chango. Don't take my word for it, please Google it, research it. They call it Sango Chango. So when they saw a strong man, a very strong man, they will call him, among the slaves, the Yoruba descendants, they will call him a Django. That is that slave that organized the slave escape and then ran away from his master. So you see, there is nothing evil. We can learn about our own culture. We don't have to allow colonialism just blot out our own culture. I'll tell you something. This Sango is an Orisha in Ifa. What is Ifa? Ifa is a series of divination. A lot of people say, Ifa is, they kill human ritual, and then all this skull manning, that is not part of Ifa. That is voodoo, that is witchcraft, that is an evil thing. Ifa, and you can research it, is a series of divination. Now, I believe in the Bible, I believe in scripture, I believe that there is only one way to God, and that is Yeshua HaMashiach, the Son of God, whom some people call Jesus Christ. I believe in him. I'm a pastor, I preach, I've brought several people to salvation, I've preached in buses in Nigeria. But here's the thing, we have to look at our own Ifa. There are some things there that we can bring in, because Ifa is also science. In 1869, the Europeans, Dmitri Mendeleev discovered the periodic table. In fact, they had the periodic table long before that. They had the elements, gold, copper, ore, kaolin, all these elements, they studied them in Ifa. Some of you have heard of a traditional medicine called Agbo. When you have malaria, you take Agbo. and then you get well. You know, they've come, institutes in Europe, they've come to study agbo, and they found out that agbo has healing properties for the malaria parasite. That agbo is something that came out of Ifa. So when we now look at it, we just allow these people to just say, oh, everything about you is evil, is fetish. No. If you go and study Ifa, if you look at it, Ifa is divination. Where else do we see divination? We see divination in scripture. Leviticus chapter 16 verse 8, divination is there. Numbers 26 verse 55, divination is there. Even in the New Testament, Acts chapter 1 verses 22 to 26, divination. That is how they were able to get a successor to Judas Iscariot, and they chose Matthias through divination. What is divination? You cast lots, and then you allow God to make the decision. So you say, okay, 6 people are vying to be like maybe something. You cast lots, and then if the lot takes one person, then you say, okay, that is the person that God has chosen. That is divination. That is what Ifa is all about. So we have our own culture. There are things in our own culture that are repugnant, that are devilish, that are fetish. Let us get rid of that. But let us study the science in our own culture. I'll give you a very good example now. If you read Jeremiah 38 verse 7, you find out that a black man, a Cushite, the Hebrew word, because I read scripture in Hebrew, the Hebrew word is Cush. That means he was a black man. He was an advisor to the kings of Israel. And he was able to tell the kings of Israel and Judah that they should save Jeremiah. His name was Ebed-Melech. Read it, Jeremiah 38 verse 7. Now, in those times, millennia ago, black people used to go all around the world. That is why these Germanic people have a god called Thor. That Thor, that is a god to them, is the real being Sango, because that coincidence is too much. You have Sango with his axe anvil, and you have Thor with his axe anvil, and then the two of them, they bring lightning down. Theirs was a god, our own was a real being. So let's look into our culture, and let us develop our culture. Let's take the science in our culture and project it to the world. My name is Ronald Mokri, and I hope that you've understood this. I am not justifying fetishism. I'm not justifying witchcraft. I am justifying that our culture has science in it, and we can benefit from that. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.
But Reno travels all around the world. I hope you get inspired about what you see. Apostle of greatness, Reno is a master. Only one man against the whole world in large. Fighting with the monsters, poverty I can't stand. That's why Reno is